Welcome to Android Authority on Air, the original Android Hangout show on Google+. I'm Derek Ross.
I'm Scott Anderson.
I'm Dan Charlton.
And I'm Jonathan Franklin.
This week we're going to talk to you about Motorola's new logo and what that means for Google. We're going to hit up some developer news. We're going to hit up the Google Play Edition devices. Let us know in the comments what you think about them if you're going to buy them. We're going to hit up some contest information. We're giving away a Galaxy Note 8.0. We have another special edition to give you a special code for the giveaway. We're going to talk about some devices from Sony, some app updates from Google Search. Google Now is doing some awesome new stuff. Google Play Movies is getting a little more hollow with a new layout, and we just love it. Some rootin' and ramen stuff over at CyanogenMod that just protects our privacy a little bit more. And Dan's going to talk about what Dan does best, some carrier news, some LTE information, and some patent wars that judges denied the Samsung Galaxy S4 on something, which is cool. All right, guys. So let's get started here. Let's talk about Motorola's new logo. Okay, it's a logo. Why are we making a big deal out of it? Well, because Google owns it, right? All right. So for Tech Week, at the bottom of the website, which Motorola is a sponsor of, we noticed that a new logo appeared, and the traditional logo that we've come to know and love, with a bright red circle with an M in the middle, it's been updated a little bit. So the new logo wraps the traditional M logo with a segmented color wheel that it feels very googly. It's the Google colors, but most importantly, underneath the traditional M that we're used to seeing, it says a Google company. So why is this a big deal? Well, Google bought Motorola, roughly a year ago, a long time ago. And just now, a year and a half later, we are seeing the fruits of that labor come to fruition. We're seeing Google saying, all right, Motorola is ready for a change. Here's their new logo, but more importantly, we are ready to tell the world that Motorola is a Google company. Because remember, they've been following along with most likely with devices that they've had in the pipeline over the past year and a half. It's been devices that were already planned out, already contracts already made, agreements already had. So they're saying, okay, this is our Motorola. Let's move forward with it. So, with that said, I think Motorola is in need of a dire change and needs to let the world know who they are. Hello, we're Motorola, and this is the new awesome. This is the new Motorola. I think Google coming out and saying that in their logo and reading a lot into it is good. So, what do you guys think about that? I mean, it's a logo, but it says a lot in a logo, right?
Yeah, it's a logo. I really couldn't care that much. It's not bad. I've certainly seen worse logos. I've seen cooler ones.
So you don't think it's a big deal that Google actually says, "Hey, we own Motorola" in the logo, letting everybody know that?
I think it's a good publicity. It's good publicity for the company, and God knows they need that because of where they came from, and their devices. They haven't come out with a device in a little while. At least not a googly device.
I like the fact that they're putting the Google into Motorola.
Yeah.
The thing is,
making
the brand makes the name. Not the name doesn't make the brand. The logo doesn't make the brand. The brand makes the name. So rebadging is awesome. Just make it count.
All right. So John, speaking of making it count, let us know about what developers can now do on the Google Play Store.
Yeah, so we saw a little bit of it at I/O when they mentioned it, but developers are now able to mark their applications for Google Play for education. And as you can expect, this is something that's going to go out to kids, and it's going to be a little bit different than the typical Play policies where it's going to be very heavily monitored and curated.
Is it necessarily for kids, or is it for Google apps for education marketplaces, which is going to be a lot more universities?
A little bit of both. I mean, I'm sure I think there's going to be a part of the market where you can, as a consumer, you'll get to see part of it too. But the way they're going to do it is the developer is going to mark it out to place it into a queue for evaluation. by a third-party network of educators, and then the educators are actually going to assign the apps to the appropriate subject, and then grade level, and applicable Common Core standards like the metadata part of it. So this is going to be very professionally done compared to what you would see with a normal submission. It's not, the developers aren't just going to throw it out there and get it stamped as a educational app. It's going to be very monitored, very curated to something very specific for kids to, and that's really how it should be, especially for young children anyway. You don't want crap ending up in that category.
All right, so let's continue talking about Google Play stuff. Let's talk about the big news this week. Yesterday, the news that we've heard for a month and a half, since Google I/O finally happened. The Samsung Galaxy S4 finally dropped on the Play Store, as well as the HTC One in their pure Android goodness. Their Google Play Edition-ness is what it's officially being called. Pure, yeah.
Little quotation marks.
Now, before we've called these devices Nexus user experience, and various people around the web have said these devices were, Nexus devices. They're like Nexus devices, and we've heard, a lot of speculation on what to actually call them. So they're actually called Google Play Editions. They're not a Nexus device, and they shouldn't be treated as a Nexus device. Now, a little bit of history here. I believe everybody here, Dan, John, Scott, this is something that, we have wanted, that we, us as Android fans have wanted to see the top phones from the top manufacturers come with stock Android. We don't want their skins. We don't want their apps. We just want a powerful phone from the big guys running stock Android, right?
Sure, but unfortunately we're still waiting for that.
Okay, all right, we'll get to that. So this has been something for years that Android enthusiasts such as us have wanted. We root and we ROM our devices to get rid of TouchWiz, to get rid of Sense. And when Google announced this, it's like, wow, this is almost unbelievable. This is something that we've been waiting for. So let's talk about that. Now, before we move on, let us know what you think of these Google Play Edition devices in the comments. Have you bought one? Which one did you buy? Why did you buy it? Or why do you hate it? Why should we bring out our pitchforks? Why should we kill it with fire? A lot of people don't like these, all right? So let's move into some talking points about this. So Hugo Barra, during the IO13 keynote, said that these devices will receive, timely updates, and everyone applauded, and that's great, because one of the big things with Android is, timely updates. Nexus devices are the only ones that get updated right away.
Hey, at the previous I/O, didn't they form some kind of an alliance for timely updates?
Yeah, at I/O 2011,
there have been many alliances that have been formed that have not necessarily held up their end of the bargain.
Yeah, so that Android Alliance actually never did anything in the year it was actually around. But hey, last year the Platform Developers Kit, became available to OEMs, and yeah, we're waiting to see a lot of big changes from that too. So
that has helped with new devices though, because you're seeing new devices with the newest version a lot more than you used.
Okay, all right, I'll give them that. I'll give them that, John. Okay, so OEMs are going to update the Play Edition devices. So HTC is going to update their device. Samsung is going to update their device. And a lot of people were really upset about this, thinking that Google should be pushing out these updates to these devices. But you remember that these devices Google didn't build. With the LG Nexus 4, Google was there along the way building the Nexus device. They were there saying, we want this, we want that. They were involved in the process, where Google didn't build the HTC One. They didn't build the Galaxy S4. So obviously, when kernel updates, which include direct contact with the hardware, kernels interface with the hardware, right, Dan? That's what the kernel does as our esteemed kernel developer in here. So the kernel has to come from the guys that make the device, because they're the ones that knows how the hardware works. So having the kernel come from them isn't that big of a deal. They've already released the kernel source. You can go ahead and download it. You can hack and slash it. You can do whatever you want with it. Now, another thing is people are saying, so if these updates are going to be timely, Google came out and said, once again, these updates are going to be timely. Well, what does timely mean? I mean, is it going to be within a week of the Nexus devices getting updated? Is it going to be a month? Is it going to be 3 months, but it's still going to be for their Sense device or their TouchWiz device? So before we move on, we'll say, Dan, what do you think about the OEMs being in charge of the updates? Is that a deal breaker for you, or is that what these devices were designed for?
No, I think that's sort of the way things need to happen with this arrangement. I think my problem is less to do with the updating process, because you're right, this more or less is just the way it has to happen. My problem is with the everything else.
Okay. So, John, if you were to buy one of these, is that a deal breaker for you that Google's not directly pushing out the updates for you, that that the OEMs are reviewing the code, they're putting it together, and they're pushing it out?
It would make me a little bit nervous. Because if you remember when the Galaxy Nexus came out, you had different versions. You had the Google maintained versions, and you had the Samsung maintained versions, and that was it Yakju. That one was for a long time behind even the Verizon Galaxy Nexus on updates. So, and they were pushing pretty much an identical device and an identical software stack, and they just didn't push the updates. And it was, some cases it was carriers, but still makes you worry a little bit because the OEMs they would just have to prove that to me.
So Scott, let's say you bought one of these devices, right? You bought the Galaxy S4, for example. You get an update. Is it going to make or break the device that Samsung is okaying that update before Google releases it? Is that a big deal to you?
Not a big deal. Just happy that the carrier's not there.
And you know what? And I think you just hit the nail on the head. This is taking the carriers out of the equation. Remember, the carriers are the ones that have, like, let's say, I hate to say Verizon because I'm on Verizon, but it doesn't matter. The carriers in the United States are the ones that have to certify the software, have to certify the updates, have to certify the radio changes, have to certify everything and guarantee that it's going to work 10 times over, sign all sorts of paper, and then push the update out or okay the update to be pushed out. So we're taking one major chunk away from this update debacle here. It's coming from the people that make the device. The carrier doesn't have to approve it, I think that's a big deal, don't you guys? So it's going to speed things up. It's going to speed up updates. Are they going to get them a week later? Who knows? We'll find out when 4.3 drops.
And I wonder, can carriers do anything about this? Nothing.
It's not,
really.
It's not bought through them. It's not directly tied to their network in terms of, how you would think, because they're not the ones that supplied it. So I don't think they can, and that's great.
Yeah.
It boils down to the same thing we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It boils down to support, because the Play Store is managing the warranty handling and the software support for this. So that part is the part that takes the carriers out of the equation because they don't have to guarantee it.
Okay, so it's good that carriers it's good that carriers can't muddy the waters, because we know they do that here in the U.S. because that's what they do. They do a great service to us because they allow us to use our devices, but they also screw some things up from time to time. All right, so
one thing to add to this is this puts a lot more pressure on OEMs to show their. This will eventually, we'll know this in a couple months. This will show their true colors. Are they supporting their device? Are they doing timely updates? And we'll kind of know, who's who and who to side with.
All right, so before we move on, Scott, you brought up a good talking point. So the S4 is going to sell dozens and dozens of millions of devices. The HTC One is going to sell not as many, but it's going to sell dozens of millions of devices. They want to support their 10 million, their 50 million customers, whatever that number is. Do they really care about 10,000? 50,000. whatever that number turns out to be that buy it from the Play Store. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very small fraction of their market. You know,
but the things that they're updating, can they be used on both platforms since they don't both have the same framework underlying in them?
Dan,
right?
Dan, you're shaking your head. Yes. You want to? Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I kind of dislike about these devices is that it's not really pure Android. It's basically TouchWiz or Sense stripped back down to looking like stock Android. But it's still got the Sense and the TouchWiz framework embedded in it. So realistically, there's no reason I can think of technically why it shouldn't be able to run Sense apps just fine, or TouchWiz.
So the TouchWiz or the Sense framework that is still relevant to the device in the kernel.
Yeah. That's another reason why the OEMs have to be involved with the releases and the update process, because they aren't just writing bringing the hardware and writing the hardware abstraction layers. They're writing the whole software stack.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the next talking point here. So people are flipping out that these devices aren't Nexus devices. Well, yeah. So what does that mean? Well, they're not being updated by Google. Google isn't providing the factory images like they do for Nexus devices. There may never be a factory image provided. Nobody supplies factory images but Google.
There probably will be factory images provided, because pick your Samsung or HTC device. I bet you we can find some factory images for your device.
But would they release their
direct at this time? There is no direct factory image provided from Samsung.
Right.
They're providing the kernel because they have to comply with GPL, but they're not providing an image file that you can download to these devices and you can flash over. That isn't available yet. There is no requirement that is ever going to come. It might, and that's awesome if it does, but that doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean that they have to do it just because we want it, or just because other devices sold on the Play Store, Nexus devices, have that capability. Now, another differentiating, factor here is factory, binaries. Obviously, we kind of have we don't really have the source code, we have the kernel, but we don't have the operating system source code besides AOSP. We know it runs AOSP. We know we have the kernel, but there's obviously a few things here and there that are different on these devices, right? We're just talking about how the framework is modified. So, are we going to see that source code like we do from a Nexus device? There's no requirement to do that. Are we going to see the binaries? So you can download AOSP, you can get the binaries, you can pop them in and compile your own ROM. Probably not. They might. But you got to remember, these aren't Nexus devices. What these devices are is they are stock Android, from the outside. It's stock Android for people that don't want to root their phones and want to run the latest device. It's stock Android for people that don't want to void their carrier warranty and run stock Android. It's for people that don't want buggy software that run Paranoid Android or CyanogenMod and run this crap for 6 months, and then they go to take a picture and their camera force closes. It's for people that want their phone to work and run AOSP. It's nothing more than that. That's my opinion.
Without all the extra.
That raises one question.
And what is that, John?
How many average consumers do you think are going to go to a store like Google Play, pay $650 for a device that stock Android, for all of its merits, really probably accounts for less than 1% of the entire Android user base?
Exactly.
So it's kind of like a question of the business model. Maybe it's meant for that type of consumer, but is that consumer really even going to use that avenue to begin with? Who's this really targeting?
And I'm confused about that, because the average person does not know that you can go to play.google.com and buy a phone. So who are these Play Edition devices, as John said, who are they targeted towards? Who are they supposed to be for? chances are, if you're watching this or you're listening to this, you have rooted your device, you have ROM'd your device. If you own one of these devices, you can already run a CyanogenMod or Paranoid Android or AOKP, something like that. You can already run an AOSP-based ROM, but I'm still going to say that those are buggy from time to time. You have to wait a long time for them to become stable, and these devices provide a stable build out of the box. You don't have to wait 3 or 4 or 6 months for somebody to give that to you, and it's going to be supported, a year and a half from now. So,
that's true.
So, I think in closing here to talk about these devices, I think that the Play Store Edition devices, the market's a little confusing, but they're not going to sell a whole lot. But I think for people that want their phone to work, that want stock Android, it's a good choice. I'm happy the way that it turned out. I think only good things can come from it. I'm not sure, anything else besides that. So, Dan, what's your 30-second recap on the Play Store devices? What do you think about them?
Well, throughout everything you just said, you probably said AOSP a dozen times, and that's the worst thing you possibly could have done, because these aren't AOSP. You're not going to get the ROM code. It is all proprietary. There is nothing open source about it. It is not stock Android. It's Sense with Sense stripped back off of it. Just like the HTC First is Sense with Sense stripped back off of it, and then Facebook Home dumped on top. It's still all HTC framework. It's still all HTC code. It's still all HTC's problems. It's going to look like AOSP, but if you really want that and you're a basic consumer, get Nova Launcher.
Okay, so Nova Launcher fixes the launcher but doesn't fix everything else. You won't know that HTC has their hands in the mix unless you're a developer, unless you're a tinkerer, unless you download the kernel and you actually look at the kernel. The average person isn't going to know that, hey, look, HTC still tinkered with the kernel.
The average person also isn't going to care about the stock look and feel. The person who's going to care about the stock look and feel is going to care about it being stock.
That's true. That is very true.
HTC's overlaid crap stripped back down to kind of maybe being sort of almost there.
All right, so John, how do you feel about these devices? What's your thoughts?
I think the people that get them will get them, they'll get a good device. I mean, because you're talking about the 2 top flagship devices on the market, but, and the software, they'll probably be very happy with it too. The development community is going to be pretty much exactly the same as what you're seeing for the current devices now. And probably the only disappointing side is that what I was excited for was not so much the devices, but what it could have done to the development community had it been open. It would have given them a clean slate for for not having to have projects like Cyanogen work out Bluetooth and sound and RILs and all of the stuff that takes months to try to get right before they can move forward with the project. Could have been erased day one with these devices, and it just really didn't. That's the only disappointing aspect of it to me, because the people that there are a lot of people that get carrier phones, they're going to root their devices and want to push something like this, and they didn't really benefit from this.
I think one of our viewers, I think Matt Wallaby Clark, pretty much said it best, that the market is the same. It coincides with people that are already going to do this. Mm-hmm. People that are already going to go to XDA or insert random website here to download this, to modify their devices. They're just doing it for you. But then again, the people that can do it, why won't they? They can buy the device for $200 on contract versus $600, and they can do it themselves. So I'm a little confused. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's cool, but it's a little confusing.
It's the tiniest step in the right direction.
No, yeah, that
is true.
A step in the right direction, no matter how small it is, it's still a step in the right direction.
It's like a half trip. Like you're walking along and you trip.
It's like the OEMs got drunk and fell down and got that much further forward.
Well, they're not entirely drunk. They're just a little bit tipsy.
Got drunk and tipsy. I can.
What will be interesting though is if if HTC and Samsung can get any kind of user data off of this versus the user data that they would get off of their typical, and feedback from the users themselves, if you're talking about that average type of user, something they find confusing in Samsung's software stack versus AOSP being easier, maybe it'll give them some kind of metric to go off of. We need to work on this.
Yes, like, oh my God, my eyes are on fire. Stop with the assaultive color.
Something along those lines. Maybe it'll help a little bit.
I really hope.
Scott, go ahead and let's move on. Let's just say your last comment about this.
I really hope one device manufacturer comes out with a flagship phone that is strictly AOSP. That would be cool, and I think HTC kind of needs to, just because their sales, they're having issues.
Yep.
And they need to do something. So why not side with AOSP and just kind of blow it out of because their build quality is awesome.
Definitely.
And yeah, like Dan said, step in the right direction. I like the fact that they're cutting out the carriers, but it is one of many steps that needs to be taken.
Yeah, HTC could fire all of their Sense developers, save all of that money, and just port AOSP to their devices and push it. And I bet they would sell a ton more devices.
All right, so
they would.
So if you're into rooting and ramen, which we'll get to in a little bit, system dumps from these devices are available, and people are already taking the system dumps and porting them to the international versions or AT&T and T-Mobile versions of these devices. You can find those threads on your favorite Roots wiki or XDA developers forum.
Asterisk on the international S4, that would be LTE versions only.
And in your quest to get more information about the Google Play devices, if you're like me, you don't own an HTC One or an S4, and you own a device you hate. Anyway, sorry, I was getting ready to go off on a tangent. If you own a non-S4 from the Google Play Store or a non-HTC One, and you want your device to have that wallpaper, that live wallpaper, if you want the boot animation, if you want that new Android 4.3 camera, because remember, the 4.3 camera that comes with the Google Play Edition devices was leaked or shown at trade shows over in the Middle East a few weeks back. So if you want that new camera, you can go ahead and download it and put it on almost any device. I'm seeing a lot of people put this camera and getting Photosphere on devices that didn't previously support it. I'm seeing a lot of people get this new camera on a lot of different devices. And the main thing about it that's different is that how you access the camera functions and features and options. The wallpaper is the phase beam wallpaper, only it's red, and it's called Sunbeam, and it's awesome. And what else did I say? Oh, the boot animation. You can install the boot animation. For those of you watching here on YouTube or live, that is the Sunbeam Live wallpaper that I have on my HTC DNA. I'm not going to show you the boot animation because that takes too long to show, but the boot animation is cool. I like it. All right, so let's move on to, I'm sure most of you are here watching or listening for this. Let's move on to why you're here, right? We are giving away a Samsung Galaxy Note 2, thanks to the guys at Natural Motion behind CSR Racing. Check out that app. It's pretty. Actually, I installed it on my Nexus 7. I'm not a big gamer, and it's actually a pretty cool game.
It's a good racing app.
Yeah, it's actually not bad. Like I said, I'm not a big gamer, but I enjoyed it for the few minutes I was playing it. So last week on episode 69, we gave you a special code that allowed you to visit AndroidAuthority.com, go to the contest, enter the special code, and get one additional chance. As promised, this week on episode 70, we'll give you the second special code to enter, and that special code is...
Wait, hold on. This is episode 70? We've been doing this for 70 episodes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. Where have you been the past few weeks?
Oh, God. Continue.
Well, Scott, I'm happy to have you back.
I'm happy to be back.
I am. All right, so...
Oh, by the way, I made my bed, if you guys can see, for the viewers that are giving me crap about making the bed.
Scott, this isn't even your house. You're your girlfriend's place. Of course you have to make the bed, or you're not going to be able to go to bed.
That's very true.
What he's saying is she kicked him out and put him on the couch.
Yeah, she's sleeping right now.
Okay, all right. And so Scott is on the couch. Hashtag Scott on couch. Let us know what you think.
Dirty pictures.
So this week our code is H2G2. H2G2. That's H, the number 2, the letter G, and the number 2. And I'll explain why we used H2G2, because a little bit ago, the Wall Street Journal reported on a few tidbits of Android and Google information. The Wall Street Journal confirmed our previous reports that Google is making a smartwatch. They also confirmed our reports that Google is focusing on an Android game console, or a media streaming device that will also be a Android game console. And we reported a while back that this device was called the H2G2, and it was a media streaming device that would focus on gaming. So that's why that code is being used. And they also said that these would be available this fall, and they'll be much less expensive than the $300 Nexus Q that never really made it out of the Play Store. So that's exciting. We've known this based on sources and reports. We don't know when they're going to be available. We don't know prices. I think it's awesome. I can't wait to buy a Google media streaming device to see the changes for Google TV, because we all know that Google TV hasn't really gained a major foothold. I think that this is going to be Google's new attempt to capture the living room, their streaming device.
Again.
Their streaming device, their console device. That's their new take on the living room. I don't think Google TV is that, but that's my opinion. Okay, so I've been talking for a while. John, let us know what devices are out and about this week.
So, in case you were wondering about the big phone trend, I hate calling it a phablet, but the kind of in-betweener devices on sizes, it's not going away anytime soon, and Sony has just put their entry on the table. It is the Xperia Z Ultra, or Xperia Z Ultra, however you want to pronounce it. And right now, this thing is probably one of the largest of the hybrids. It has a 6.4-inch 1080p display, and Sony is calling this their new triluminous display, which is, they're promising better contrast and more vibrant color balance, and then it's got a lot of the Bravia TV technology, and then it's an X-Reality. They merged that software in, which kind of analyzes the videos and reproduces lacking pixels. So, one of the biggest complaints with the Z was the display just didn't quite live up to the hype of it, so it's good to see they're stepping up there. You can write on the display with any pencil, stylus, or pen, so I guess it's kind of their shot at Samsung, but it doesn't come with an integrated stylus. Snapdragon 800, it's probably the first real device we've seen with the 800, and it's clocked at 2.2 gigahertz, but they're marketing it as the world's fastest mobile processor, which they'd be right.
That's going to be screaming.
And it's also one of the thinnest devices on the market. It's 6.5 millimeters thin.
Man.
And it is the same water and dust resistant design as the Xperia Z. Comes with a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, 16 gigabytes of storage with an SD slot. The camera is an 8 megapixel rear camera with 2 megapixel front. It doesn't come with a flash. And I would guess the reason it doesn't is because the reason they probably went with 8 instead of the 13 is because of the thinness of the device, I would think. But
no flash?
No flash, interestingly. But I would think that's because they were trying to trim the device size down, the weight down, because the device is huge. But I can't say that I would want to get a phone that big. And they're pushing a Bluetooth accessory, which is a headset, kind of like a handset, but it's not one you put in your ear. It's actually held almost like you would hold a phone, and then it connects via Bluetooth. You can see notifications on it. You can plug a headset into it and actually listen to music through it and clip it to your shirt.
You have to get a separate phone to manage your phone.
Yeah, basically, it's like a little remote for your phone, which actually looks really cool. It would be nice to have as an individual thing. I would say that one exciting part about it is this is probably the first Sony device we've seen in a while that's kind of ahead of the market on hardware.
Yeah.
Which, you know what I mean? They're usually 6 months late to the party on hardware, but you know, this one's kind of jumping the gun a little bit. So that part of it makes me excited to see what Sony's got down the pipeline. I can't say I really want this device because it's huge, but I'm sure some people will. But it's exciting to see Sony's really kind of pushing the boundaries of what they've been doing with mobile for the last couple of years.
How big's the Note 2 again?
5.5 inches. So this is an inch bigger.
Yeah.
It's gigantic. I would encourage
That's what you said.
Yeah.
I don't know when it'll stop.
You know what, Scott? I don't know, but I know you should tell us about some app updates that happened this week that made you feel a little bit more excited than last week.
So Google Now, Google Search, long time going for an app. This one seems to get updated a lot. Love it. And yeah.
So what are the neat features that the new Google Now, the new Google Search added this week?
You got voice action tips. You got new voice actions. Play music from your phone or on the Play Store. You can also specify what app you want to play it on. So, like, if you say like play Britney Spears, you can do YouTube. Play
I'm
music.
actually curious as to why your example was the first example that came to your head was Britney Spears.
From my childhood, I'm having a flashback. Okay. Saved offers from Google offers when nearby a redemption location, which is nice. Also, information about shows that you're watching on your internet-connected TV, U.S. only. I don't understand this one fully. Derek, do you know if it's Google TV or any same TV that is on your network?
I think it's Wi-Fi enabled.
All right, so what it does is it uses the basic protocol and scans your network to see if you have a supported device. So it queries your network. It says, hey, we're using the simple discovery method, and look, here's a device named insert internet TV name here, and it says, oh look, this is a device named model number Samsung 6500 UEF 72. Oh, that model number is a internet TV. Okay, so he's watching TV at home, and then you hit the listen to TV button, which is just sound search, but only it specifically looks for TVs, and it does a sound search on the TV program that you're watching, and then it tries to determine what show you're watching. Then it'll show you actor information, TV show information, yada, 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 yada. So now the question is why couldn't you just sound search and have the TV show up? Well, because it doesn't, the TV card shouldn't show up all the time. It should only show up, when there's actually a TV that's turned on. And if your TV isn't turned on, the card isn't going to show up. So that's why it looks at your network and says, look, there's a TV on. Are you watching TV? Versus always doing a sound search or saying, oh, I'm watching TV. Let me go do a sound search so I can get more information. That's not how Google Now works. It knows that you're watching TV. Therefore, it asks you if you want to find out more information.
See, I'd like it to be able to sort of program your shows into it so that it'll pop up with reminders about them or like highlights from yesterday's or stuff like that.
Yeah, like how you do with, pick your sports teams.
Exactly.
I want to pick my TV show and, show me new episodes or show me recurring episodes, or that would be sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, I like how they rolled out the sports and everything, but you can really play off of that if you want to. With
I agree.
A lot of different things.
So right now, when a new movie or a new TV show that you're interested in, or that you searched for or played before is available on Google Play, you get a card notification saying the latest Doctor Who episode is now available, for example.
Right, but I have to consume that information in some way that Google knows about.
So yeah. So what about if? So you're saying you want it to just pop up on Saturday nights at 7 o'clock or wherever 3 in the
Whatever
afternoon
TV show I want to watch.
saying,
Yeah.
hey, look, Doctor Who's on, and we know you like Doctor Who. Yeah, I agree. It would be nice to be a little more proactive with the TV and movie notifications.
Or I'd like it to be like set up, not necessarily like I have to search for it, therefore it knows. It'd be nice to just like preset it as well, just like your sports teams. I mean, you can disallow certain teams to be on your thing to follow, so that'd be nice to add that.
And in your case, Scott, maybe you don't want your TV recommendations to show up everywhere. So, like, if you're at your girlfriend's house, you may not want certain shows to pop up as being the recommended show.
Boy Meets World, I don't want popping up. Good show.
All right, so John, let's or actually no, there's more information about apps. So speaking of Google Play Movies,
Movies got a refresh. It's a nice refresh. Got that sidebar ownage.
That sidebar.
Yeah, the sidebar, new visual design. It also allows quick access for what you're likely to watch next. It's kind of cool. And then if you look at the comments in the Play Store, you can find that people are kind of pissed off because the personal videos is no longer like a tab. It's in the overflow button, which is, I think, nice, but it's kind of hidden for all those people, I guess. Yeah. So people are pissed off about that, but personal videos is still there. It's just in the overflow button. And Facebook comes out swinging with a beta program. Now this is something that they stated that they're one of the most downloaded apps in the Play Store, which is pretty much true because there's a lot of people on Facebook and a lot of people use the mobile app, and the mobile app is shit. So their driving desire to make it better on more devices and actually usable. They developed a beta program that goes through Google Groups, which is awesome.
What's unique about that is this beta program got announced at I/O, and every single one I've seen has been available through Google+. So it seems funny and obvious that Facebook uses Google Groups, a private Google group that you have to join and be a member of, similar to a community, to be part of the beta program. But why would Facebook want their users to sign up for Google Plus to use a Facebook beta? They're not going to do that,
It'd be really cool.
So obviously they're using Groups, which nobody uses.
Google should really make it mandatory to have Google Plus the way to distribute the betas.
Or they can automatically merge Google Groups with Google Plus and migrate Facebook over to them automatically.
Groups are going to become Google Plus communities, and then Facebook's going to be screwed.
Facebook's going to be like, wait, what did we do? We just built this huge community in Google Groups.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook's going to announce, do you want to test our new beta program? Please join the social network Google Plus to do so.
Oh, man. But you know how Facebook was trying to push the updates for themselves inside the app, and then Google said,
No.
Now this could be the same story. You ain't gonna use Google Groups. You're gonna use Google Plus.
Well, no, Google allows you to use Groups.
I know, but it'd be really funny.
Yeah.
They changed their minds now, though.
I would definitely go back on that. That's sweet.
All right, so rootin' and ramen. So CyanogenMod did some neat stuff this week, John.
Yeah, you won't call it stable or final. 10.1.0 final is dropped to devices that qualify for it. That means devices that have good quality source or stable enough to be considered final. They also gave some clarification on the Exynos 4 platform, in which is not really a secret, but is going to remain on nightlies. It's not going to get official stable because of the lack of documentation for the Exynos platform and all kinds of issues with the binaries in the source that they provided. And also, so it basically applies to an international Galaxy S3 or any variant of the Galaxy Note 2.
Or S2.
Yeah. The Exynos 3 devices, which are the Hummingbird-based devices like the Nexus S, and the Exynos 5 devices, which are Nexus 10 or above, like the Galaxy S4, those are not going to be impacted because the Nexus S already gives them a solid base for the Exynos 3 platform, and then the Nexus 10 gives them a base for the Exynos 5, so that's going to remain as it is. Those will be stable eventually. The Galaxy S4 is just a newer phone, so they're still bug fixing it. One other thing they showed off this week was a mini camera tile that actually is able to be added to quick settings. So you'll be able to pull your quick settings panel down, tap, and then you'll get a live viewfinder, and then you can take a quick snapshot with your phone that way. So it's a little bit quicker way to get into your camera while you're using the device if you need to take a quick picture.
Because the live screen is so difficult to navigate.
Yeah. It looked pretty cool, but I don't know how much I would use it, but it's nice to have the option.
I mean, it's nice that it's pervasive as opposed to the lock screen where you'd have to turn it off and back on.
Yeah. The biggest thing, I guess, news-wise to come out of them is that their next big feature, there's really a big privacy and security push from them anyway. They've already merged Privacy Guard into the nightlies. And the next thing is that Koosh is actually writing a secure device-to-device push messaging, which he described it as being kind of similar to how iMessage does it, but basically what it's going to be between two CyanogenMod devices, and it's going to be incorporated into Framework. So it's going to be encrypted end-to-end, and it'll be sent over Google Cloud messaging. So it works pretty transparently, even if it's with third-party applications. It's PGP, so it's encryption plus authenticity for text messages. It's built into the system. If you're sending to somebody without a CyanogenMod device, then it's going to be pretty much as normal. If you're sending from Cyanogen to Cyanogen, then it's going to be, a secured.
What's interesting about that, John, is it would be nice to have some type of notification, to say, hey, the person you're messaging is on CM, so it's going to be secure. Otherwise you have to know that person's running CM.
Yeah, and there aren't many people I know personally on CM that I message normally, but it'll be a nice thing to have for geeks between each other.
All right, so all of us can text message each other and we're safe, but if we text message the majority of the people we know, we're screwed. Okay, I got
tomorrow when you flash another ROM.
or tomorrow when I try something else out. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a cool feature. Don't get me wrong. It's cool, but
it's neat and it's innovative. But as big as CyanogenMod is, and they are by far the largest custom ROM in the community, they're not that big. So for a proprietary internal to CM, anything is just silly and arrogant.
I love you, Dan.
I mean, it's just arrogant. There's really just no other way to describe it. I mean, I get that they can't really control the interaction between one CM device and a non-CM device, so I get the practical reasons why they're doing it this way, but it's just arrogant. To assume that CM is that big and that important that a CM to CM transfer protocol is even worth wasting your time on. It's bad enough when Samsung builds Samsung to Samsung transfer protocols, or Apple does the same shit, instead of just using a universally available protocol for device-to-device of fill-in-the-blank manufacturer or type or other specifics. It's just arrogant.
I somewhat agree with Dan.
It's just arrogant. There's really just no other way to describe it. I mean, I can't really control the interaction of one CM device and a non-CM device, so I get...
That's right, Dan. Look what you did. I don't think he can come back from that.
Moving on to some carrier news.
So
Verizon
that was my bad.
That they are covering 500 markets in America, which covers 95% of the population, and about 99% of their 3G network is covered. So they're saying that their LTE network is now substantially finished. That said, they are still looking forward to rolling out AWS LTE and Voice over LTE, both of which they plan to start sometime next year. So actually seeing that stuff in devices, probably not until late next year or early the year after that. So definitely good news for Verizon customers if you want LTE. you probably have it on Verizon if you have Verizon coverage in general. Also in carrier LTE news, T-Mobile said that they are planning on rolling out LTE advanced features before the end of the year. They were not very specific about what they mean by features. A lot of the tech blogs around have been talking about how it's not going to be full LTE advanced, and realistically that's fairly true, but realistically nobody anywhere is going to be building a real full LTE advanced network anytime in the near future. Full LTE Advanced has a 3 gigabit downlink capacity and also takes a 100 megahertz block of spectrum. No carrier has that much spectrum to spare. So nobody's going to be rolling out full-blown LTE Advanced. T-Mobile is going to be focusing on some of the bigger features, though. Carrier aggregation, which is going to allow them to piece together non-contiguous blocks of spectrum to come up with 20 megahertz or more blocks. And they're also going to be pushing the downlink capacity up to 150 megabits per second, up from the current 100 megabit max. So the other nice thing that T-Mobile has going for them is they've already laid the hardware for those updates. It's just a matter of testing them out, getting compatible devices on the network, and then flipping the switch to make it go live. So should be a lot faster rollout for T-Mobile than it is for Verizon, who's not even starting until next year. And then in patent news, Apple had been trying to replace a device in their second case against Samsung with the SGS4. Previously, the judge had ordered them to limit the number of devices, and they scoped it down to a specific number. And Apple was basically just trying to bait and switch and pull one of these devices that's not really on the market anymore off the list in favor of the SGS4. The administrative law judge on the case said no to that. That is not complying with the order. And Apple's defense about it was basically, oh, this is just going to force us to do more litigation. To which the administrative law judge responded, we've already forced you to kick dozens of devices out of this case that you're obviously going to bring back to litigation anyway. No. So just add this to your next case and move on. So it's definitely a bit of a slap in the face for Apple on that one. But in other patent nonsense, the ITC had granted an injunction on Apple products, the iPhone 4 and below, for Samsung, and Apple is appealing that to a different governmental agency that basically is answerable to the White House. So basically they're hoping that they can get the White House in their newfound anti-patent troll, to strike it down.
Okay.
Whether or not that happens is really anybody's guess. Really, though, Apple's being the patent troll here and has outright refused to pay a royalty. The ITC granted the injunction not because of the it's Fran patents in question, but Apple has flat out said, we don't care what price you put on these patents, we will not pay for them under any circumstances whatsoever.
That's being friendly.
The White House is going to strike that down is pretty small, because really Apple's acting like the troll here.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Apple doesn't troll, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, these are standards essentials patents. These aren't bullshit patents that shouldn't have been granted in the first place. These are standards essentials patents that led to the creation of 3G standards that the entire industry uses and has coalesced around, that Apple simply refuses to pay for. Okay. Everybody else in the world pays for them or contributes to them and gets them by way of contributing. Apple refuses to contribute and refuses to pay. So they'll probably not be able to get that overturned. But then again, they aren't selling any of those devices anyway.
All right, so let's check out a few questions here. If you have anything you'd like us to chat about for a few seconds, a minute, go and let us know in the comments here on Google Plus if you're watching live, or on YouTube if you're watching live. And we're going to go ahead and go through a few of these. So Jeremy wants to know about our contest. Why do you have to log in as Facebook? This is Google Plus territory. Well, Rafflecopter uses Facebook for easy entry. If you don't want an easy entry, that's fine. You don't have to use Google, or don't have to use Facebook. But if you would like to get an easy extra chance to win, go ahead and use Facebook. I won't tell anybody.
I will.
Plus option too?
It should. It should. All right. So Alvin wants to know the link to the contest. I shared the link to the contest on Google Plus, so go ahead and go to Android Authority's Google Plus page and check that out. The contest link is there in the comments. Lucius Knight is actually a friend of ours. He is now an Android enthusiast. I mean, he's watching an Android podcast, and he recently owned an iPhone. So welcome to the Galaxy S4 version of Android.
Welcome to freedom.
Well, it's not true freedom yet, Dan.
Welcome to more options.
Welcome to more options on your Samsung device. So congratulations, you and Stacy. I'm glad to have you aboard. Joe said earlier we had talked about the Ouya. He said, "Isn't the Ouya?" Actually, we were talking about the H2G2, and he said, "Isn't the Ouya an Android gaming console?" Why, yes, it is. I actually own this piece of shit.
And he loves it. Absolutely loves it.
Oh my!
Wow. No, Derek.
So that's my.
You get what you pay for.
So that's my 2-second review.
Hey, but wait, your son likes it.
My son is 4 years old, and he loves the Ouya. He plays on it all the time. He loves it.
So that's potentially a cheap alternative to buying.
And, I'm not gonna lie. The Ouya allows you to install a ROM emulator for playing old like Nintendo, Super Nintendo games. My wife is excited to play Super Mario Brothers 3. Yeah. Cha-ching. All right, so
I'd play it if I had it around.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
I know. So Sammy says, what do you expect the price to be of the Xperia Z Ultra? You know,
$600 to $650.
I'm going to say...
I think it's actually more than that. I think it was in the it was 600 and something euros, which I can't remember what that translates
yeah,
to.
but devices of similar price and similar stature, they're all about $650, $700. Except, it's going to be a flagship device pricing. You know, I mean, we don't really know what's going to be priced yet in the States, but or even international. I would say the same price as the Note 2 when it first came out, or the same price as the LG Optimus Pro. You know, those type of big devices. They're all going to be roughly the same. A few dollars, euros here and there. Yes, Scott was in the doghouse. And we're going to pick on Scott. So now that Scott is at his girlfriend's, he doesn't have to make his bed. He has to make the couch. Scott, you made the couch. You made the couch.
Make this couch.
You made that couch. All right, so speaking of, we had just mentioned the Note 2. So a YouTube commenter says he heard the Note 3 will be 5.7 inches. It was going to be 6.3, but there was too many complaints about it fitting in pockets. Well, that very well may be the case. You know, this device isn't going to be available for a few months. Chances are we don't have a lot of information on it. Who knows how big it's going to be, yada, yada, yada. That very well may be the case. John, you have a Note 2. It's 5.5 inches plus some bezel, and it fits in your pocket, right, the Note 2?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. The bezel itself could be, if you can see the edges of it, it does fit in my pocket pretty well. I mean, it depends on, I'm a guy. Being guys have bigger pockets than girls, so, I mean, whose pocket are you talking about?
Sure, but an HTC Incredible OG would not fit in a lot of girls' pockets.
Exactly. I mean, it's all relative. I think they could keep the same form factor and maybe bump it up, maybe a fractions of an inch, but not that much. Are they going to jump on the Mega? I think the Mega is kind of a testing bed for that, but I don't see it going so big that because they were pretty successful with the Note 2. I don't see any reason for them to branch too far from that. So,
Mega!
Yeah, I mean, I expect it to be a little bit bigger. It'll retain the stylus capability, and the software is most likely going to be exactly the same as the S4, plus pen features. I don't expect it to be, the rumor mill tends to boost it up to be bigger than it is. It's going to be a supersized Galaxy S4 with a pen.
Mega! All right, so a few episodes ago when the Mega devices were launched, that was a thing. It's probably still a thing. So, anyways, Scott, Mega. Let us know where people can find out all about Android Authority on air. You haven't done this a while. Can you do this?
Google Plus page. Google Plus page if you want to go there and comment along with our show, ask us questions, give your input, things like that. You can also do it on your YouTube page, Android Authority YouTube page. AndroidAuthority.com. You can check out all the news, great tips and stuff, app reviews. Then we got our podcasts from SoundCloud. Pretty cool. We'll have one up after the show. And we will have an article after every show that we do, probably the day after. We try our best. We try our best. Podbean, iTunes, all those places.
Basically, every corner of the internet that you've ever seen, you will see Android Authority on air.
Correct.
One way or another. One way or another. All right, check us out. Thanks for watching. Good luck on the Galaxy Note 8. Remember, that contest expires in the very near future. Go ahead and visit the contest page. It's in the comments. Good luck. Have a good night.
See you.